Welcome, everybody, to our show. Dmitry Litvinov. I knew I was going to stumble on that a little bit, but that's okay. That's the worst thing that happens to us today. All good. That was a long 5-minute countdown, but I think the reason we do that is because then you don't have to sit here and say, we're waiting for everybody to come in. We're waiting for everybody to come in. So welcome, everyone, to our very live webinar featuring expert guests who've grown successful coding academies of their own. In today's webinar, we'll hear from experts in the coding space on how they carried their academies to brand new heights. How did they grow their following and reach more students? That's always important because that equals more revenue. What technologies did they need to run their growth smoothly? And we have a technology to discuss. And how did they find the right staff to support their growth? We all know that it's all about the people. Our panelists' live advice will help them share their secrets behind their coding academy success, and that should translate into business growth for you. We've got a great group in the audience, founders, CEOs. We had 61 people sign up for this. But first, the most important person we're going to meet right now is Dmitry. Dmitry, the CEO of Bright, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm super excited to start this series, super excited to share the knowledge that we've gained over the years and empower all the STEM educators around the world to be successful.
Yeah, Dmitry, before we bring on our panel, we've got a great panel. Just talk about how you got here, because like most businesses, it was not a straight path. So talk about how you got here.
Well, it all started a few years ago. Can't remember exactly how many years ago when I was part of Amazon and worked at Amazon Education, and started teaching adults technical skills. So ran coding bootcamp, and then I realized that it's probably would be a better idea to, instead of trying to break bad old habits of adults, to start helping build good habits early for kids. And that kind of brought an idea of starting Kids Coding Academy. And in 2018, we launched Mighty Coders in Seattle area, and we grew pretty fast. Within a year, opened the second location, then another location, then went online. And end of 2020, we sold that academy and actually started embarked on the mission to start empowering other educators to replicate our success. And this is kind of what we're doing today with Bright. We're helping STEM educators to be successful at what they do.
Cool. We're going to talk a little bit more about Bright. I really like what you said here about not trying to break bad habits of adults, but starting to work with kids, and you are in good company. So let's bring up our panelists so everybody can see who they are. We're going to kind of one by one talk to them, but of course we'll have a free-flowing conversation as well. Our first panelist that we will get to know is Benjamin Powell. He's the founder of KT Byte. Benjamin graduated from Cornell with a major in computer science. He developed KT Byte virtual machine system, as well as early versions of the coder. He developed KT Byte's audio lectures, original curriculum, including recent CS5 and CS8 courses. He's also a cyclist and he enjoys building quadcopters, you know? So we're going to have to get to the quadcopters. But what we're going to do is give Benjamin a question. He's going to answer it. And then Dimitri's going to have a chance, hopefully, to respond, or I might also bring our other panelists up. So, Benjamin, what gave you the idea and motivation, because that's really important, to start your online coding academy?
Well, thank you, Josh and Dimitri. Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, so to answer your question of what really gave me the motivation to teach kids programming is, of course, I think it shares a lot of parallels with most people here, right? We want to see kids succeed. We want to give them opportunities, and we see how much programming, computer science education can change people's lives these days. And I would say that that is one of our core values at KT Byte, which is to put education first and to make sure that no matter what happens, the kids are learning. It's a difficult thing to do actually in this stage and age, because I'm sure a lot of the audience is aware when you're operating in an industrial environment, you have to balance many conflicting demands, and the team is pulled in many directions. And so we try really hard to make sure that not only the curriculum is really strong, but we make sure we follow every student through their journey, right? And that I feel like the commitment to make sure that we feel pain if the students aren't learning is a key component of what has made us successful over the years. So thank you for having me here today.
Definitely. Dimitri, what resonates with you in terms of how Benjamin's doing what he's doing?
Yeah, well, I have a question. So, the programming for kids, it's a relatively new concept just in general, right? If we were to, let's say, go back 5 years ago and you'd say, like, hey, we're gonna teach kids how to code, you would get a lot of question marks like, wait, what? Question code? How's that gonna work? Are you gonna make them write C++? Are you gonna make them build all those enterprise software? So you had to go through you know you had to go through a lot of those kind of question marks. Benjamin, can you kind of tell me a little more when you were starting? What did you have to go through to actually to relate to parents? Actually, yes, kids can code, and yes, it's actually beneficial, and yes, it is actually going to be a great activity for kids.
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that, because not only do we have a lot of parents ask us, why would you want your kids to code? But since we started teaching kids in 2012, there has been many changes in the demographics of parents and communities and schools and other industry partners. So, I mean, like, just imagine before COVID, trying to get people to turn on the webcams was
Yes.
a struggle, to say the least. To speak nothing of people who may not have had all of the requisite technology to get their microphones and cameras working. So, yeah, I think like you have to keep in touch with your customers, right? In our case, it's going to be parents because we're a B2C company, primarily, at least. And that means you have to have, if you're building a team, you have to have team members that really understand what the parents need, in our case. And I would say that programming education has come from the point where it was certainly a specialist endeavor 10 years ago to now being kind of presumed to be something you will have to do, right, if you're raising a kid who's interested in STEM, right, or STEAM or whatever, something like that, right? So there's varying degrees of commitment that families and institutions will have to what does that mean. I think the definitions of what is STEAM and what is STEM are still changing quite often, and also very regionally, depending on where you are in the United States or in the world. And certainly we see that with customers in Asia and in the United States having sometimes different goals. But but yeah, I would say that it's ubiquitous now, and I don't think we need to explain to parents anymore what is programming as we had to 5 or 10 years ago.
But Dimitri went in and asked the 5-year question. What's it going to be like in 5 years or 5 years before? We're going to ask your partner, your operations manager, Mark Bucchieri. Let's bring Mark up. Mark is another one of our panelists. Mark graduated from Tufts University with a major in mechanical engineering and a minor in music. Super cool. He has worked as a STEM instructor and developer for White Mountain Science and instructed Outward Bound courses. Also super cool. In his free time, he enjoys rock climbing, creating music, and backcountry skiing. Mark, you sound like a really cool dude.
Hey, thanks, Josh.
Welcome to the show. We've got a question for you, a very important one, especially for people who are listening and trying to grow here, their coding academy. What tools were essential during your growth process? And what about the people using the tools? How did you grow a team that could effectively grow with those tools?
That's a great question. And when I hear that, I think of what those tools were aimed to accomplish all along, which transitioning to online was primarily, I think, maintaining a personal connection with our students and parents. So that obviously becomes a lot harder when you're not meeting people face to face in a physical location. You may be talking to them face to face over a webcam, but having ways to do accurate reporting and have personal feedback provided for each student, mostly through improvements through our engineering team to the system that allow for auto-graded problem sets and homeworks that are more visual for younger students to learn, and also regular written feedback that instructors are reminded to provide. Those sorts of systems, once we had them automated, really took a lot of weight off the team because we weren't soliciting feedback from instructors, and parents felt like their needs were being met without spending as much time on the phone with us. Cool. But we definitely have had to grow as a team. I think the greatest tool we've had there has been referrals. So a lot of our instructors who are younger, maybe know us from Massachusetts, but then go to college all over the country and can refer their friends who are also excellent instructors. And then just having robust technical systems like a coder classroom that doesn't require a third-party install, has supports for different types of coding, whether it's block-based, processing Java, standard Java, all alongside the teachers' webcams, student tools. And then alongside that, maintaining excellence in curriculum development and being able to train all of our part-time teachers and full-time teachers to teach new classes without much of a hitch.
Mark, I think the key words in there, once we have it automated.
Yes.
Much easier to say than do. Dimitri, talk about the actual automation of processes.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was going to ask Mark. So what do you think, what is the minimum set of kind of features, I would say, a minimum set of things you need to automate to be able to actually, not continuously spin the wheel without results, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think the essentials really come down to scheduling. So having a way to provide a set schedule that a student can see easily and click one button to join class without that being the different links across different calendar systems or platforms. And also for our staff, being able to use one scheduler tool to build that throughout the entire company has been really important to us.
Dimitri, can you answer that question too, please?
Mark, you broke up for a second, and I think
he's back.
I lost. Okay, you're back. I lost him for a second, so I missed the part.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can repeat what I just said. So basically, I think the essentials for us have come down to having effective scheduler tools. So being able to provide students and our staff with one button they click to join class and to see who their teacher is, to see who their students are, without having to provide that information, a lot of messages. I think that was one of the really foundational building blocks that then we could add problem sets and the code review and all these things that become more and more built in on top of the scheduler.
Got it. What about the learning process itself? What do you see the essential parts of making sure that the student logged in? Great. I'm a student. I click the button. I'm in the classroom. Great. But what's next? How do you ensure that it goes smooth? Because if I click the button and the process after that is not smooth, not a good experience, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that for us has come down to having it all on the same online platform. And obviously anybody, not anybody, but you can run a successful coding class over Zoom. We're not trying to say you can't. But for our system, it's worked really well to have the built-in problem sets in the code review that the student sees right next to the teacher webcam, right next to where they can actually write the code. So there's no switching back and forth between windows or applications. They can open a problem set, the teacher sees them working on the code, and can provide feedback as they go.
What about the team? Walk me through what are you looking for in the team members when you're trying to hire, because you're gonna have to go as fast as your team, right? So
yeah, definitely. That kind of makes me think of like the transition to online and some of the pros and cons there. So we don't have to be local, which means we can source talent from all over the United States, all over the world. We have much better operational coverage now because we have somebody in basically states throughout the time zones who can do customer service or can teach pretty much any hour of the day. But in terms of actual skills, I found it's really important to have people with actual human interaction skills who can talk to our students, talk to parents, and don't mind being put on the spot if it's like, hey, this parent really wants to meet with you and talk about how their kid is doing. Having instructors who don't shy away from those interactions, but are really happy to speak with any face of the customer.
Yeah. Wanted to add. So actually, when we were running Mighty Coders, right, we were also looking for people with staff with the same skills. But one thing I've noticed, and correct me, Mark, if I'm wrong, I think it's a lot better to hire a good teacher who can actually learn to be technical instead of hiring good engineer who will need to learn how to be a good teacher, right? Would you agree with that?
That is definitely what we found. And we do have really good engineers working for us. They mostly focus on the website and occasionally talk to students, but a lot of our teachers just come from an education background. Maybe have done an intro to coding class in college, but then can pick up the rest fairly quickly.
Yeah. We actually had one of my first teachers that I hired was chess tutor. She was fantastic. She was great. She picked up everything on the fly. And the most important thing, kids loved her. Kids absolutely loved her, and and that really made a big difference.
I think we have solved the chicken or the egg, at least when it comes to building your coding academy, which is find great teachers, and that will help. I want to bring on Yumio Senioshi. I know Yumio. He's from Penguin Coding School. He's the founder. Yumio earned his PhD from Harvard. You might have heard of it before entering the tech field as a new grad. He worked for Lithium Technologies, Google, you might have heard of them, and other top businesses before he started Penguin Coding School. So Yumio has a really neat story because he's kind of transitioned from the folks at Google to running his own business. So he's got some advice. That's what we've got him here for. So Yumio, your question: can you share one piece of advice with others who are struggling to gain traction in their online coding academy?
Sure. Thank you for having me on the show, Josh and Dimitri. So, we really believe in, a positive teaching experience, as I'm sure everyone in this field does. And so we really want people to try our class. I used to be, my PhD is actually in economics. So we used to talk about our service as an experiential good, right? People have to experience it to know the quality. And so in the beginning, and even today, we offer a lot of free trial classes so that parents and children can really experience our classes and know what they're getting into. If it's a positive experience, even if they don't become a student right away, they'll tell their friends, you get the whole word of mouth going. So we did a lot of just getting people to try us. The first 3 months when I was starting this, I started in a church Sunday school classroom. It was all basically free, and we were getting a lot of positive feedback, and that's what actually led me to start the school as a business. So if you're having a hard time getting traction, I think what's important is getting the right teacher, or if you're teaching yourself, get kind of a good classroom experience, and then have as many people try it as possible. I think one thing, Benjamin said about, in the beginning, people didn't really, know the value of coding education. So they were like, well, why should kids learn it to code? Like, they didn't do it until they were in college or even after college. I think that's less true now, but even today, especially for young kids, parents are kind of skeptical. There's a lot of kind of similar programs out there. And so if you want to differentiate, you have to get people to try your program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. This is what I've been telling everyone who would ask me. Well, how do I get my program out there, right? Because when you start, you pretty much have nothing, right? You like, well, nobody knows me. I have no reputation. I have no kind of history. How do I start? And I agree. Yes, get them to try, and the customer experience is gonna speak for itself, right? It's gonna speak for you, your customer experience. And I like what you said, that even if they don't become customers right now, they don't become your students right now, eventually they will either share about you with their friends, or they will come to you later, right?
The one of the things that Yumio talks about, and I've heard this before, is that, and I wrote notes about this. I take lots of notes, so that's why you might hear some papers rustling there. Yumio believes that coding is for everyone, and even if it doesn't turn into a future career. So I wanted to kind of hear from Benjamin on that thought, that coding is for everyone, even if it's not your future career. Is that true?
I mean, yes, it's a nuanced question, because certainly not all forms of programming are necessarily for everyone. You have a differentiated customer base where some perhaps want to try out STEAM, and they just see programming as a component of doing maybe like their school's Lego robotics, their school's academic programs. And for other people, programming may be something that they're planning on majoring in university, or they already have set out their sights on a career, even if they're 7 years old. Sometimes it happens. So certainly you have a wide variety of demand. But I would say that among a large percentage of parents right now, if you're an adult and you're working in industry, and in the United States, the top of the S&P 500 are all like tech companies, right? So people are keenly aware that the competitive landscape of the middle class of not just the United States, but many countries right now is dependent on being not merely an informed consumer, but being able to produce information technology, right? So I think that kids are not stupid. They recognize this. Kids are a lot smarter than you think, right? They want to be not just, they don't necessarily want to be a nerd, but they want to be empowered, right? And they want to be capable. They want to feel confident, and they want to feel like they have a future that they can shape for themselves, right? Even if they're 5 or 6, they start realizing this. So I think that, yeah, certainly that is the case.
Dimitri, coding is for everyone?
You know what? Yes, it is. One thing about coding that is, anybody can do it. Not necessarily everybody will enjoy it, but anyone can learn. Anybody can do it. And just like in school, anybody can start doing math, right? Anybody can start solving math equations. Same thing with programming. It's pretty much equations, right? And if you look into kind of the career kind of landscape nowadays, some of the most popular jobs nowadays didn't exist maybe 20 years ago. And some of those jobs actually, which are not maybe even related to programming, to building software, they actually require you to have some understanding of programming logic. Like, for example, let's take financial advisor. I'm sorry, not a financial analyst. As a financial analyst, you have to process a lot of data, a lot of financial data. And how do you do that? With Python, right? And you have to write scripts. You have to write some code to make sure that you can process that data and make sense out of it. So that's just one of the examples, but it's all going to continue growing from here. It's all going to continue being, I'd say programming will continue being one of the main kind of a part, maybe not necessarily the core part of the job responsibility, but it will definitely be required and kind of will be essential part of the workforce in the future. And then we're probably going to get into the point where you either in it or you're out of it.
Anybody who has watched me do some of these shows knows that I do print out articles as I read them. And exactly what you're saying, Dimitri. I read this article in the Boston Globe. It said, with demand for tech workers growing, employment of computer scientists is expected to grow 22% from 2020 to 2030. So the growth there in the jobs is obvious. Mark, first of all, 2 questions. Talk about your role as an operations manager, because I think that's helpful for people to understand. When we use the royal we, we've all been there as entrepreneurs, we say we, but we might just mean me, but it's not in your case because you have a title. But how do you keep growing this company alongside Benjamin? So talk about your role and talk about how you grow the company.
Sure, yeah. So operations at KTByte covers a lot of the instructional side of things, including curriculum development, training new instructors, hiring, as well as scheduling and making sure classes go off without a hitch. And so a lot of the potential for growth just comes from doing what we do right now really well, because obviously that keeps students wanting to come back. It keeps our instructors engaged and happy, and ideally referring their friends who can also become great instructors. And as several people have mentioned in the chat, happy students who are successful often also want to come back as instructors. And so a big project of mine recently has been managing our teaching assistant team as a stepping stone from student to instructor. Anyone who's achieved the college level of our classes, which sometimes is students as young as 12 or 13, all the way up to the end of high school, has that potential to be a teaching assistant. And so they can be sitting in a class, helping the instructor. They can be running student help hours pretty much any day. And that gives them probably a little bit of income, but more importantly, the confidence to know that they can teach these skills that they've been learning for years now, and that they are a part of us and our success, and can also take part in the growth that we're experiencing, and also enjoy being part of a team that delivers computer science curriculum.
That's awesome. Let's stick on curriculum. We have
Sure.
a question here from Oakville. I don't know. Oakville sounds like it's in California, so I'm just going to say Oakville for now. But the question is, how do we design curriculum for different age groups? Can you talk about that quickly, Mark? And then we'll also ask Yumio the same thing.
Sure. And I think this honestly comes back to the previous question of, is coding for everyone? And I believe it is, but the reason I believe it is because I think coding lets you tap into a lot of different fields in a way that isn't accessible to students otherwise. So if a student's really excited about building games, that's one of the more obvious ones. They can now use Minecraft or Roblox or any of these other platforms to build the games they've enjoyed playing from a young age. But even a student who's interested in storytelling can use code to tell stories, or can use code to make music or make art. And I think what comes down to curriculum development, especially for a young age, is tapping into as many of those different interests as possible, so that especially for a beginner level class, students will see something they can really connect with that taps into an interest they already had, and that can make them want to further develop a skill in order to do more of that thing.
And the ball off to Yumio.
Yeah, so I totally agree with what Mark just said in terms of, tapping into the kids' interest. So, we really believe that, motivation is the key to learning. And how do you get kids to, motivated to learn coding, right? And, games are obvious, but we found that sometimes you get like a gender imbalance if you just focus on games, right? And so we focused on digital art, and we got, a whole new group of people interested, and finding that, hey, coding isn't like something that's just about math. It's, it can be very creative. So we designed curriculum, obviously different age groups you can, have in general, the amount of understanding is different. So we had different curriculum, even for the same programming language, based on age. But really, I think the key is finding hooks and interesting projects for them to work on, because one nice thing about coding is it's not just about problem sets and answering questions, right? What you really get out of it is like being able to build something. And so finding something that they can build and be proud of, I think, is a very powerful motivator in education.
Dimitri, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot.
So I want to kind of double click on what Yumio said is you need to kind of find the interest, right? And what's one of the best ways to find your students' interest is hear from them directly. What is it that you like doing, right? One of the questions we were asking at our academy when parents come in and they interested, they want to know, okay, what is it that you guys doing, and maybe is it for my kid? We just ask them, the kid, directly, what do you like doing? You like playing video games? No. Okay. Do you like drawing? You like singing? You like dancing? Tell me more about what do you like doing. And kids will tell you. They will tell you direct, like, what is it that they like to do. Some might be a little bit shy, but then that's where your teacher skills need to come in and actually make have kids actually open up. But they will tell you everything that they like, and based on that, you can actually start building out your curriculum. You can and in terms of technology, so block coding, Scratch is always a great start. You can do storytelling, you can do game development, you can do arts, you can do animation with Scratch, right? A lot of things you can do. You can even build a game of chess and and have kids play chess if they like chess, right? It's really, but it all comes down to what does your customer want? What is the interest to? Because you need motivation, right? You need kids to want to come to you. You need kids to if you have a physical center, you need to create that environment so kids jump out of the car before they even parked, so that way they run to your center, right? If it's online, you need to cater to what they want, so they log in 15 minutes before the class starts. And how do you do it? You give them what they're truly passionate about. And and tools, and pretty much tools, I wouldn't say it's irrelevant, but they're you can use all sorts of tools. Scratch, you can use JavaScript, you can use Minecraft, Roblox, anything, right? Even you can even just have a text editor and start with a simple text editor, and that's it.
Dimitri, we could do a whole show on this, so I don't want to open this up too much, but
Yep.
you're kind of touching on online versus in person.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to do a whole show on it because we only have about 8 to 10 minutes left here. But can you just give your thoughts on the positives and negatives quickly on both? Because obviously we're going to be in a hybrid world, so we're going to experience both.
Mm-hmm. So in person, I'm sure we have actually both types of academies who listen to our show right now, who does online classes, who do in person, maybe both or maybe just one. In person is a lot easier to engage kids because you have that eye contact. You can see the dynamic of the classroom. It's a lot easier to be proactive and to engage your students. Well, online it's a little bit different, right? Sometimes kids just want to turn off the camera. Sometimes they just go silent, and it's a lot hard, a lot more challenging, right? But then kind of online it's positive, right? You can reach bigger audience. You can actually you can figure out a way how to actually make use different tools to actually make that engagement as close as possible to in person. So I think it's a whole different topic for discussion in terms of going to physical versus online. But I think engagement is probably the biggest kind of differentiator, because everything else is pretty much the same, right? You use the same tools, you use the same approach, you delivering same curriculum, and you do kind of you achieve same goals, whether it's in person or online.
Okay, cool. So by the way, Oakville is in beautiful Ontario, Canada, not California. My apologies. We have another question from Owen Stokes. What testing tools can be used to evaluate students? Benjamin, we'll throw that one to you. Can you talk about testing tools for evaluating students?
Unfortunately, at KDBI, we engineer a lot of these tools ourselves. We have a software engineering team that builds out tools There are websites that have been historically called online judge websites. That's been one of the terms for kind of like frameworks where students can submit their code and there's some kind of automatic checking about whether it's correct or not. A lot of these online judge websites are targeting an older audience, like university students doing international computing competitions. And some of them are specific to particular fields, like Kaggle might be specifically to data science projects using Python. So I would encourage, if you don't have the engineering resources, to build out your own, to look at these kind of existing either online judge or also something like interview prep websites. There are some that like are ostensibly targeting adults who want to do problems to get a job, right? But the framework that allows students to check their work is the same. If you're instead teaching younger students, whereby the correctness of the code is not as important, and it's more about the creative contribution in class, then of course you can rely primarily on feedback from the instructors, right? And in those cases, you can, again, if you don't build out those systems yourself, just use some kind of ticketing or task system. You know, there are lots of those things out in the world, whether they be like Trello or whatever. As long as you make sure that that information is passed on to the parents in a timely way, then that can also provide great qualitative feedback, which is oftentimes more important than quantitative feedback for the younger students.
Benjamin,
So
that's a comprehensive answer to a very tough question, but there also is a very succinct answer that is out there. We're going to spend a few minutes here talking about Bright, because Bright might be potentially the answer. You know, KT Byte has grown. That's phenomenal. You've guys got your own team. Not everybody can at this point. Bright does provide this platform for coding companies to grow. We're going to watch a quick commercial about Bright. Let's roll that.
Got it.
If I learn to code, I will be more creative. I will be a better problem solver.
And I will have more self-confidence.
If I learn to code,
I'll be 40%
more likely to become an inventor.
If I learn to code, I will have better focus.
and a higher chance of having a job I will enjoy.
I will learn how to think outside the box.
Be not afraid to fail.
Be not afraid to fail.
Will you let me learn to code?
Will you let me learn to code?
I love that video. My favorite part, Dimitri, is be not afraid to fail. And that young lady looks up and she's like, whatever.
Oh, well.
It's all good. So, Dimitri, talk about Bright. We know you're super passionate about it. Tell us.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, right? Why are we doing this, right? We've started, we've grown, we've sold our own coding academy. We've been successful with that, and we want others, want to kind of pay it forward, share the success, and help other educators to replicate the success that we achieved. And because it's not for right at the end of the day, it's not for us; it's for our kids. I'm a parent. I have 4 kids, and I want the best for my kids. And what else, what other better thing I can do except make sure that they have a bright future, right? That's actually kind of where Bright came from. Yeah, I want my kids to have a bright future. That's what Bright, right? Bright future. So, and that's why exactly we started this show, so that way we can bring together an expert and share that knowledge and help the community, right? It's being academy owner is a lonely place, I'll tell you. It's not everybody understands you. Some of your friends even think like, what are you doing? Why are you even doing that? That's such a tough job. It's it's so unrewarding. Sometimes it can be unrewarding, but it is very rewarding. You know what the reward is, right? You are shaping the next generation. You are directly influencing the future, the people who will be influencing the future. So, and basically, what Bright is just just a way to contribute to that picture. And that's what I've been passionate about education all my life, and it actually finally came to that place where like, hey, you know what, I can actually now influence the influencers.
Yeah, well, Dimitri practices what he preaches for sure. I know that he's available to talk to anybody out there who wants to scale their coding company and or just be better as a person. He's a good friend, so reach out to him. You can absolutely find him. I wanted to bring up one thing. We have a webinar coming next month. We're going to talk to the world's top nonprofit coding academies, so that should be very interesting. And just point out the fact that, first of all, Dimitri, you're not alone. We had at least 61 people join us here. Who knows who's watching, streaming? So congratulations to you for getting this plane off the ground and then landing it within 40 to 45 minutes. Yumio and Benjamin and Mark have been fantastic. The conversation can continue around Bright and their Facebook page. This is just the beginning of this webinar series. This is one of 6. Next time we're doing nonprofits. And if you'd like to be a guest and you're in a coding academy, please let us know. Reach out. We've got seats, and we just want bright people who are passionate to join our conversation. So thank you to everybody who you see faces right here. Thank you to our team in the back. Thank you to Anna, who's running the Facebook page, and everybody who showed up. Let's keep moving forward with Coding Academies.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you all, with most of you. And and I'm very thankful for what you guys, and I'm sure a lot of parents are also very thankful for what you do. And despite the challenges, you guys continue pushing forward, and you are the difference makers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you next month.
Bye.
Yeah.